Hey guys, it's Alex from FastFitnessTips here. This is not your normal video from us. There's no fancy graphics today, no inserts of bike parts or high tech. But this is a discussion of high tech, and this is about the CeramicSpeed driven. It's hugely popular on the internet, and you have to give CeramicSpeed something. Their marketing department is a genius for putting this out there. Look how many times it's been retweeted or viewed on YouTube, on loads of channels. It's like an explosion of interest. Yeah, of course, everyone's interested in drivetrain efficiency. I'm interested too. But CeramicSpeed, come on guys, you're putting a product out there that's not even working. So how can you say this is the fastest aero bike that's ever been invented?
And a shaft that runs along the axis of the bike, so its frontal area is very minimal. After wind tunnel testing, we found that we had created the world's most aerodynamically efficient road bike.
It's the fastest non-functioning aero bike. And why do I say that? First of all, it's a prototype, so there is only one or two. Apparently one has been sold, so let's stick with one or two. A huge cost, by the way. The development cost, what, $100,000, $200,000? Your guess is as good as mine. It could be higher than that. But I'm saying this is not a bike you can buy. In addition to the fact that it's not a bike you can buy, it doesn't actually shift gear. I mean, how many people have to point out to CeramicSpeed that there's so much force, actually pressure going through those little bearings that would have to change gear. Those contact points would be tiny, but the pressure through the rod and through the drivetrain would be so high. It would be a nonsense. It wouldn't change gear, which is why we don't see it change gear. It's never shown as changing gear.
Did you already shift while driving?
No, we don't have a rideable shiftable yet.
The wireless electronic shifting mechanism that CeramicSpeed came up with essentially behaves like a dual clutch transmission in a car. In this case though, what you have is a split rear pinion with two halves that move independently, but with just one motor and actuator. During a shift, one half of the pinion continues to transmit torque to the rear cassette, while the other half advances to the next easier or harder gear.
In fact, the whole thing is tested, limited to, wait for it, limited to 100 watts. They said it was so spectacularly good, they just did the test at 100 watts and extrapolated out. So not only is it fixed gear and doesn't change gear, but basically it can't be ridden in the real world because it's fixed at 100 watts. That doesn't make sense to anyone. Alright, hang on a second. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say they made this thing and it was phenomenally good. It did everything they say. Then what are their claims? Well, there's two claims. There's aero claims and then there's the classic drivetrain claims. So the aero claims, new this week, are that it saves 3% in aerodynamics. So okay, so that's a 300 watt rider. It saves 3%. So what's that, 9 watts? That's pretty good actually. That's pretty spectacular. If that drivetrain saves 9 watts in aero, that's good. But hang on, wait. It's 3% of the aerodynamics, not of the whole power going into the system. Remember, we've got losses in terms of rolling resistance. We've got those drivetrain losses as well. So we're talking about aero here. So it only saves 3% of aero, and it only saves 3% of aero of the bike aerodynamics. So okay, quick back of the envelope calculation. 300 watt rider, 70 kilogram rider, 7 kilogram bike. Okay, rolling resistance CRR 0.004, decent tires, fairly good surface. Typical drivetrain losses, well, 5, 6, 7 watts. We'll come back to that when we look at their drivetrain losses in relation to driven, but let's use that as a ballpark figure. Now let's be fair, let's say the rider's going along not on a completely flat time trial course, but not a super hilly course either. Let's say 0.5% grade, very, very modest, 0.5% grade. Do the maths, take away drivetrain losses, take away rolling resistance, take away rotational drag, take away gravity losses. And what are you left with out of those 300 watts? Well, you're left with about 220 watts in aero losses. So yeah, it is the majority of the losses, but it's not 300 watts, even though the rider is putting 300 watts through the system. So of those 220 watts, how many are the rider? How many are the bike and the system? Well, as you probably know, sadly, most of it is the rider. 150 watts of drag is coming from the rider, you know, their size, their clothes, and I'm saying that's a typical rider. So if we take off those 150 watts, what are we left with? We're left with 70 watts of losses relating to the bike, the wheels, etc. Let's do CeramicSpeed a favor and take 3% off that figure. That is now 3% of 70 watts, 2 watts. So I guess the bottom line is, in aero gains, how much speed, how much time would 2 watts save on your typical 40 kilometer, 1 hour TT? The answer is, for 350 watt rider, it would save about 10 seconds. For a 300 watt rider, it would save about 12 seconds. For a really slow, like humble rider, let's say 200 watts, that might be me by the way, on that 40k TT course, then it would save, around about 20 seconds, which is not too bad, but it's not huge. Now those are the aero gains that they're saying today. Now let's come to drivetrain gains, because they've said all along the drivetrain efficiency is a spectacular 99%. 99%. Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds like a massive figure. But hang on, what's the drivetrain efficiency of a regular like Shimano Dura Ace? Well, it could reach 98% when the watts going through the system is high. So if somebody's sprinting along or going for that line, 500 watts going through the system, and your typical system's 98% efficient, and they're like pimped up CeramicSpeed, you know, OSPW, ceramic bearings throughout system is 98.5% efficient. So hang on a second, their driven system's 99%, but their normal chain system optimized that you can do without buying all the CeramicSpeed kit. You know, you can wax your chain, you can buy quality steel bearings, and that will still get you pretty much 98.5%. That difference in 0.5% is how many watts exactly? It's actually 2 watts. It's 2 watts again. So the savings are exactly the same as I just mentioned. Around about 10 seconds on a 40k TT for a fast 350 watt rider, up to 20 seconds for a 200 watt rider on that course. So the reason we're going through all this, guys, is so that you can understand that CeramicSpeed's driven claims are actually fairly humble at the end of the day. They're not super spectacular. We're talking about a handful of seconds on the course, a very small number. And what's the cost? So what's the cost per watt or the cost per second? Now this is where it gets really interesting. First, take the example of the CeramicSpeed ceramic bottom bracket bearing, which could cost you around $200 or pounds, and it will save you how much? Do you know how much that could save you? Well, it's typically way less than 1 watt. It's actually usually less than 0.1 of a watt. A ballpark figure is 0.03 to 0.05. You know, we could be really generous and say that it was 0.1, so that if it was $200 and it saved you 0.1 of a watt, which is on the outside of what is likely, then it would be what? $2,000 per watt, of course. And what about the CeramicSpeed driven model? Well, we don't know how much these bikes are, but you've got to imagine one has been sold in Dubai. I doubt that went for less than $20,000. And even if they made that, like somehow they made this on a production line, do you really think that kind of bike's going to go for less than $15,000, $20,000? So what we're saying is $20,000 and it saves you 2 watts in drivetrain efficiency, possibly 2 watts in aero drag. So that's somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 per watt. I don't know many people who are going to pay that. I don't know many people who are stupid enough to pay that. Are you? Okay, so what's your opinion on CeramicSpeed's driven? Am I missing the point here? Is this really the next big thing in cycling? Have they cracked the code of a chainless system that's going to get us all working and riding on direct drives in the future? I doubt it somehow. But what's your opinion? Tell me in the comments below, guys. And by the way, Ben Powell, if you're going to write to me now and say I'm wrong about X, Y, or Z, please post the actual facts relating to actual testing in your lab, not extrapolations that you said we couldn't do here. You said our interpretation wasn't valid because we didn't put a prima facie test in our own lab. So what do your results show that I'm missing that I haven't said today? That's my challenge for you, Ben Powell, because I know you're going to watch this and you're going to want to reply in the comments below. Alright guys, CeramicSpeed's driven. Disappointing. Really disappointing. Take care guys. Until next time. Whoa. Did you hear that? I'm getting old.
Hello, my name is Jason Smith. I'm with CeramicSpeed, and we have just invented the world's fastest bicycle drivetrain.